French President Emmanuel Macron got some seriously bad news over the weekend. His poll numbers are plummeting as France is increasingly repudiating his leadership during this whole coronavirus outbreak. So we're going to take a look at the latest polls and how they reflect Macron's incompetence, but also how they signal that Marine Le Pen may indeed be the next president of France. You're going to absolutely love it. Greetings, everyone. Dr. Steve here with you. I certainly hope you're all having a safe and sound, lovely locked down Monday. If this is your first time here on this channel, we post 2 videos a day analyzing current events, analyze some super awesome conservative trends so that you can live in the present in light of even better things to come, and it doesn't get better than that, right? So if you haven't already done so, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. You're going to absolutely love interacting with this online community of conservatives from all over the world that you get to network with. Let's begin with our video chat question of the day. Do you believe Marine Le Pen will be the next president of France? Let us know in the comments section below. Do you believe Marine Le Pen will be the next president of France? Because more and more pundits are taking that question very, very seriously, given Macron's poll numbers plummeting. And before we get into the details and all that, let's give a huge shout out to our very good friends over at Noble Gold, who are supporters of this channel. If the coronavirus has turned your financial life upside down and you need help to sort out your choices to get you back on track, you should definitely talk to our good friends over at Noble Gold. Their team has helped hundreds of families through this crisis, and they can guide you right back to safety and give you ideas of how to get there. Now remember, when you need a financial friend, Noble Gold will always be there for you. Give them a call at 877-646-5347. That's 877-646-5347. Or you can just hit the link down below and get their free investor's guide. Tell them Dr. Steve sent you. They'll take good care of you. All right, gang, let's dive right in here. Some really bad news for French President Macron over the weekend. On Sunday, a new poll was released. It was an opinion poll conducted by a French newspaper of over 1,000 people. And the poll found that the public's trust in the government's handling of the coronavirus has completely plummeted. The poll showed that just 39% of French have confidence in the government's ability to effectively handle the coronavirus outbreak. And that's down 16 points from a previous survey taken by the same paper that was published in mid-March. So Macron's approval numbers here have dropped almost 20 points just in the last 5 weeks or so. Now, these low poll numbers are in the face of France's rising death toll, which is now around 25,000. France currently has, I believe, officially the 5th highest death toll in the world, not counting China, because, of course, we have no idea of how many people actually died in China. It could have been hundreds of thousands for all we know. Now, interestingly, the poll also shows that 20% of French believe that Marine Le Pen of the Nationalist Populist National Rally Party, 20% believe she would have handled the coronavirus crisis much better. And it's so interesting that Reuters is reporting that number as if it were bad news for Le Pen. Here's what Reuters is saying. Le Pen, in particular, has relentlessly criticized the government, saying ministers had lied about absolutely everything. But she has yet so far failed to convince a majority of the public she would do a better job than Macron. Some 41% thought she would do worse, while 39% thought she would do neither better nor worse, according to the IFOP poll. Now, what's bizarre about this analysis is that if we take the 39% who thought she would basically do the same job as Macron, that means 59%, it's nearly 6% of the French, believe Marine Le Pen would either do the same job or better than Macron. How is 60% of the French public saying that Le Pen would do either the same or better than Macron? Bad news for Le Pen. Now, you could be sure if this were reversed, if Le Pen was in charge and Macron was her challenger, you could be sure that Reuters would have analyzed this weekend poll exactly like that. They would have said, Macron surges in the polls. 60% of French believe he could do the same, if not better job than Le Pen. I mean, it's just silly if you think it through. Now, what's so interesting here is that many media pundits actually thought the coronavirus could have saved Macron's presidency when it first appeared on the scene. France 24 ran the rather hopeful headline at the beginning of May, coronavirus crisis throws a lifeline to Macron's troubled presidency. And they pointed to some Very encouraging polling at the time that shows Macron at a 2-year high. In fact, these pundits praised Macron's style of leadership in the midst of this whole crisis. Of course, while that style of leadership, played out pretty badly during the Yellow Vest uprising, nevertheless, it appeared to be an asset for Macron in his handling of the pandemic. But alas, surprise, surprise, things were not as our media elite wished them to be. Indeed, Macron himself has admitted that France simply was not prepared for the coronavirus. France has experienced significant shortages of hospital beds, masks, other critical products. Popular food markets have been turned into makeshift morgues, and high-speed trains end up being turned into COVID-19 transport vehicles. And so even the ultra-liberal Vox, that's Vox with a V, not Fox, the ultra-liberals over at Vox admitted that much of the blame lies at the feet of French President Macron's government, which was extremely slow to respond to the outbreak and took a number of critical missteps in the early days of whatever response they did end up giving. Again, according to this Vox report, on January 24th, 2 people in France tested positive for the coronavirus, becoming the first known cases in all of Europe. They had just come back from China. And the Macron government, to say the least, they just didn't take it very seriously. It actually wasn't until a month later, in early March, when the Macron government began to take real action, shutting down 120 schools in 2 regions. And even then, the government still allowed gatherings of upwards of 1,000 people. Macron himself attended a theater production on March 6th, only to turn around and then shut down all theaters literally in a matter of days. So he's clearly sent a number of mixed messages, and his response to the crisis has been haphazard, to say the least. And the French have noticed, and they have now very little confidence in Macron at this point. And as Gavin Mortimer over at The Spectator reminds us, in many respects, things are only going to get worse for Macron. Mortimer actually calls this the calm before the storm. Writing from France, he points out that France has plunged into a recession. Its GDP has contracted by nearly 6% in the first quarter 2020. That's the worst contraction since the Second World War. The Yellow Vest protesters are gearing up and preparing for a new round of weekly demonstrations. And then you have the far left union, the CGT. They're already threatening post-lockdown strike action. So in many respects, I mean, Macron is having it easy right now. And do not forget the no-go zones, where a high concentration of Muslim migrants is already ready to explode, as they did just a couple of weeks back. The simple fact is that Macron's presidency, in virtually all respects, has been a disaster. He was elected to fix the economy. It looks like the economy will end up being worse than when he inherited it. He was supposed to institute a number of globalist-inspired reforms, such as the carbon tax and pension reform. It looks like those projects have been shelved indefinitely, right? He was supposed to be the newly appointed leader of Europe, with Merkel slowly sunsetting, stepping down. Now the EU looks like it's itself beginning to falter and crack under the weight of the new nationalist sentiments that have awakened from this pandemic. Everything Macron hoped to achieve appears to have been dashed on the rocks of reality. And if what some pundits are saying is true, things for Macron are now only going to get worse. Now, before you go, you'll definitely want to check out a video I just uploaded on the rise of conservative late-night television. That's right, the ratings for the ultra-liberal Stephen Colbert and the Trump-hating Jimmy Kimmel are getting crushed by the rise of a new conservative late-night host. I think you're going to absolutely love it, so make sure to click on the link, and I will see you over there. God bless.